live from Dime Square, New York City. Good evening, Kings. It's NFL betting market outlook for week 15. We are all the way into the holidays. And for that reason, in fact, this may be the last regular season betting market outlook. As we head into the holidays, we start traveling, start spending some time with family, with our girlfriends who maybe still exist. Who knows? And so, and in fact, this will probably be a relatively expedited pod and stream because a lot of stuff is kind of going on. So we're going to kind of walk through a little bit of a recap of our live betting performance, some of our favorite trades, some of our trades that didn't work so well, then dive into our drive quality scoreboard, quickly recap some of the biggest movers and fallers in the consensus market power rankings, and then we'll dive in to week 15. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Even if it's short, there's always still insight to offer. Yes. I hope.
And this is a unique week too. So because what we got our Thursday night game, and we got Saturday games.
We're blessed with 4 days of football. We are unbelievably blessed.
So when we look at week 14, recap week 14's live betting performance, what would you say were kind of what trade do you think worked out the best for you, for us, and maybe something that, didn't work out that you think that, we should improve the process, shouldn't have done it, and kind of what went wrong?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit because what went right was something that I placed on Thursday night, which I know we both placed independent of each other, but I guess it's the fact that we knew that the other was going to place it. But grabbing the Rams money line, I got it at plus 1,400. And I think what I particularly liked about that one was it was a classic trade of like watching the game. I can prepare with all the data, and I'm obviously a data-driven person, but like I saw the Rams did not want to win that game. The Raiders did not want to win that game. They were just unbelievably conservative, running the ball, not getting creative at all. And it was like, okay, I got a 14-1 shot that like Baker Mayfield's going to have an attempt to lead this comeback. And like he can do it. Anyone can do it. And at 14-1, those odds are just way too long. So that is a trade I would do over and over and over again, just watching the game. Yeah.
I was going to try and preempt you and say that one doesn't count. Because you got the 1,400, I got the 1,700, and I didn't want to brag too much about it because that was a trade that we made in private. Like, it just doesn't have the same legitimacy.
It doesn't.
And so, like, on game trade, that was kind of we're making the trade, and that, kind of like those who like chimed in or following and watching, had the opportunity to execute like along with us.
Okay.
Or something from one of your articles. So I'll say this. I'll say what I wanted to share as well, which was something I didn't put nearly enough money on it. But this was, a home run trade, same game parlay that was driven a lot from the intelligence that you shared in some of your Sunday morning articles, which was going over Trevor Lawrence passing yards, doing the alt line on the Jags, going over Tannehill passing yards. And then I threw in, that Okonkwo receiving yards. And it was plus 4,000. And I only put, again, it was a very small roll, $25. But at 4,000, that's over $1,000 return.
Yeah.
And this was something that we did talk about. We jumped on the game trade early this week, which I loved doing. I want to do it again this week. I wish we would have done it more often. It's definitely my fault why we haven't done that more often. But I loved going into it early and kind of talking through some bets, talking through some SGPs, and having a little bit of time to breathe and think and, kind of converse with one another and strategize before kickoff. And this was one that materialized in that kind of pregame prep, and was a huge winner. And again, it was driven a lot from the intelligence that you had. And I know you kind of cashed another big one on this, like the Lawrence, alt Jags, etc.
Yeah. I just took 2 legs, Lawrence 300 yards, Jags minus 5.5, at plus 1,800. And I bet my full unit on that was the biggest cash of my life, for sure, which was very exciting. But I thought that was, excluded from the live bets, although we did get the Ryan Tannehill passing over
Yes.
by a decent sum. Okay, I think that I honestly think we might agree here on one of the sound live bets, which is the Chris Moore over. The Chris Moore over receiving yards, 80.5. Right, we took that. He had about 59.5 receiving yards. It was clear that Davis Mills was looking his way. This is a team that was without Nico Collins, without Brandon Cooks, in a passing game script. Like Davis Mills was going to look Chris Moore's way. Look, anything can happen for 20 yards, but like if you have on pretty decent certainty that like he's gonna get 4 or 5 targets, it was just a fundamental mispricing because he was leaning too much on the pregame line and not enough about the like, okay, he's clearly earned himself a role for this game. He's going to be the number 1 target, and they're going to be passing the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that, I mean, I know Arjun, again, a regular contributor in the chat. In fact, joined the stream later on in the afternoon as well. Arjun Menon, I mean, he pitched 4, 5, 6 prop bets over the course of the day, and went like 5 of 6. Just was on fire. And that Chris Moore one too was, that was my favorite bets of the day, not just because it cashed, but because it was such a screaming buy. And I was really disappointed in fact that I didn't lever up a little bit more so on it, because that was the type of systematic bet that I wish we could regularly flag, throughout the course of the day, because the dude already had like 4 or 5 catches at halftime, because it was at halftime when we legged in to that live bet. He had 4 or 5 catches, like 8 targets, 60 yards. And his live line was only like 18 yards in excess of that. And he was getting the looks, and that was what was most important. And the game script generally suggested continued passing. Like all the factors lined up of like, this is materially mispriced. Let's exploit it, in like big props, especially to Arjun, for really being able to kind of source that bet, bring it to our attention, and for us to, as a community, really exploit that.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I couldn't agree more there.
What did you not like?
What did I not like? It's hard to choose.
There are so many.
The Minnesota money line. I took that in the middle of the game, basically right after the Vikings went down by 1 score. I think it was like second or third quarter. And I was like, oh, I'll trade it off at another side. And that was my pregame plan, which is fine. And I like doing that. But the game script wasn't going according to plan that I like initially in my head. It was like, okay, these teams are not going to be able to stop each other. They're going to be putting up a lot of points. And that's why I should buy both sides. But that game script wasn't happening. And I kind of just like had in my head, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Don't forget your game plan type thing. And I bet that. But I was like, the game was like 21-14 or whatever. The scoring didn't really pick up until very late in the fourth quarter when it was already out of hand. And it was kind of a failure to adapt to what was actually happening in front of me. And I was just like, okay, usually I like to come in with my plan. And there's no worse feeling than like I had the plan and I didn't execute. That's the worst feeling. But it wasn't going according to plan. So don't just bet it because it was like in your head that this was the thing to do.
Yeah. For me, I don't really not like a lot of bets that we made. I thought they actually were all pretty sound. I would say the one that I made that I regret was Giants plus 14. One, because pretty much everyone disagreed with it, and I did it anyway. And it was like I was just always behind on that trade. Again, the Giants flirted with it for like a little bit, but I mean, it just wasn't a good bet. Also, just like a lot of totals ended up not working out this year. That was definitely a drag on performance net.
Yeah.
Usually it hasn't been, but because there was just like a lot of weird game flows this week. Some games blew past their totals that you thought shouldn't, and then some games went way under that you thought also shouldn't go way under. I would say the one thing that I guess I called out this live, I think on the game trade, one of the trades that we didn't make that I wish we did was when Vikings Lions, that total dropped, a good full touchdown down into like the mid 40s. I think I saw it go all the way down to 44. And that was a game that we all kind of thought was going to be relatively high scoring. And the game started off slow. But we know that both those teams, in fact, can start to put up points near the end of the game. And that would have been like a really good opportunity to kind of jump on something like that. And we did it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Although I will stand with the what I said earlier about it still being a funky game script. But you're right. It was too low for the fact that the potential of what could be. Right. There's a distinction to be made there between kind of what I was saying before about like a trade based on certain assumptions and the fact that like, okay, total might still be a good bet under the same pregame assumptions that just could materialize in the second half. Right? Those are two different things.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I think that's my last live trade that I would say that I actually did really like, and it kind of ties in to our week 14 drive quality, something that we've talked about in the past as well. I like looking at the drive quality alternative scoreboard to really kind of confirm or deny a live kind of thesis on a game and why we either made a trade and maybe it didn't work out, or maybe it did work out, and this kind of gives us confirmation as to maybe continue to do something like that or to not. And one of the things I really liked was I really levered into Pittsburgh at beyond the field goal. So I got it at like 3.5, 4.5, 5.5. In fact, it was one of the biggest trades I made. I kind of accidentally ended up putting like a little bit too much exposure on it, but I was doing it as they were driving and they were about to kick the field goal, which is going to, in my view, was like basically at that point in time was going to put them in a position to not lose by more than 3. And in fact, they ended up missing the field goal, which like threw it off and then got me like super nervous. But they did end up, kind of getting the ball back and getting kind of like a BS touchdown in the end. But drive quality says that the Steelers, in fact, played better on a drive-by-drive basis. So Steelers 19 earned points to the Ravens 18 earned points. And it just confirms kind of what I thought I was seeing in the game in the sense of, especially when Huntley went out, that the Ravens were going to have a hard time moving the ball, hard time scoring points. Points were going to come at a premium, and that Trubisky's not great, obviously, but still capable of moving the ball and picking up yards. It just turned out to be that he ended up turning the ball over 3 times.
Yeah, that's exactly, and that's why our draft quality has it at 19, because it's going to discount the turnovers a little more based on the other plays of the draft. But
yeah. Anything else here in the drive quality scoreboard that you want to call out?
I mean, the Jaguars' thorough domination of the Titans. No, I mean, I think the standard, like Vegas outplaying the Rams, that makes sense. Same thing with the Chargers and Dolphins. I think it's pretty much how the games went. Nothing too.
Actually, another live trade that we won some and lost some on, but again, drive quality, I think, confirms we had the right approach, was Jets. So we took some like Jets levered bets, some Jets alt lines deep out of the money that ended up not cashing, but also had some like, the 9.5s and things like that. Also took some like big like plus 600s that didn't end up cashing, but drive quality, Bills 16 earned points, Jets 13 earned points. So a much closer game than what the final score suggests, kind of beyond like a full, touchdown beyond. But I actually rewatched that game as well. I wasn't watching it as closely at live, kind of was just kind of scoreboard watching. But I really liked what I saw from the Jets. In fact, Flacco came in, turned the ball over, which, drives are at a premium in a very low scoring affair. And that was critical to kind of change the outcome. So basically, Mike White kind of missed like two full drives. And Mike White played really good. He had some drops. Again, he missed a few throws and kind of wasn't able to kind of bring them back in that final drive, really to put anything together. It was kind of 4 and out, game over. But Corey Davis also went out early. Obviously, the weather was miserable. But I really like what I saw from the Jets. And I like that, kind of the drive quality scoreboard confirms that eye test.
Yeah, that's right. And then, doesn't help to salt the wound of a +7.5 Jets ticket when I lost by 8.
Yes.
But that's okay.
Yeah. No, but I mean, when it was like 7-7, we were getting +600 money lines. It's like, this is mispriced. Again, they ended up losing, but that was mispriced. Even rewatching the game, that's mispriced. That was a good bet.
And again, it's not even a matter of like take your word for it type thing. You could have bet the other side, right when the Jets were like +200 at multiple points of the game, and like the Bills were -4, whatever it is. Like you could have capitalized on the mispricing without taking it to the actual end of the game. It's like this at this point in time, this game is mispriced, and you can capitalize on that.
Yes, absolutely. Moving on to our Week 15 consensus market power rankings. Again, looking at the weekly power rankings from ESPN, PFF, 538, Football Outsiders, and InPredict. Our model equal weights all those power rankings to spit out a consensus market power ranking. Top 5, usual suspects. Bills still at number 1, Chiefs at number 2, Eagles up 1 spot to 3, Cowboys down 1 spot to 4, Bengals at the 5th spot. So not a lot of movement in the top 5. And then to round out the top 10, we got Niners, Ravens, Patriots, one of the big movers, up 4 spots to number 8, Dolphins to number 9, down 2 spots. And then the Packers at 10, up 3 spots, kind of just a relative move based on the teams surrounding them all kind of losing some momentum and dropping spots. So the teams around them, Dolphins, Bucks, Vikings, Browns, all losing, 2-3 spots, and kind of therefore by that relative move, kind of the Packers moving up. But drive quality still a meaningful market low on the Packers at 24th. The next even closest is 538 at 16th.
Yeah. No, that's a good call out, and I will say our drive quality really does have some major disagreements in the top 10. Right, the Packers market has it at 10th, we have it 24. Bucks market has it 11th, we have it at 23. All pretty surprising. And I will just say we do have a new number 1 in our drive quality, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Ooh,
all of 2 weeks ago. All of 2 weeks ago, where I remember on this exact stream talking about how everyone was ready to give up on the Eagles as they're a tier 2 team. It's the Cowboys and the Niners. I'm like, everyone has seemingly forgotten about what happened 2 weeks ago and is back on the Eagles train. The production didn't change. They just, weird things happen in the NFL. They only beat the Colts by 1. It's a good reminder of
which the drive quality, like it had the Eagles winning that game by like a full touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. Drive quality. From the drive quality's perspective, the Eagles' production has been as stable as can be from week 1 on. They've been the same team. The results of the games may have varied because that's what happens over the course of an NFL season, but their ability to move the ball has basically remained exactly the same. It's an important reminder, 100%. And because I can't help myself. Also, one of the very quiet things about this season with the Eagles, like Jalen Hurts is playing like a legitimate MVP candidate. He's the odds-on favorite right now. Whatever, regardless of who should be there. Like, it was almost the assumption like you can't win with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. That was the thing that everyone would have said before the season, and like very quietly and gradually, it's been like, oh yeah, of course Jalen Hurts can win. I think it's an important same thing to a similar extent with Jared Goff. It's like, yes, it's a matter of levels, but at the same time, I don't think we can kind of work under the assumption that there are Super Bowl winning quarterbacks and not. In the right circumstances, uh, anyone can be successful. And I wouldn't just say like, okay, good quarterback, bad quarterback, they can't win, they can win. That's an important thing to keep in mind as we move on to the playoffs and betting the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. Great call out with the new number one with the Eagles, now number one in drive quality. Because it's pretty much just been Bills and Chiefs for the season. Maybe the Bengals snuck up in there, maybe once. I know they're like got up to at least number 3. But I think it was, mostly Bills and Chiefs for the duration. Another one that, we want to do some research, something we were talking about earlier today, is to what extent the drive quality power rankings lead the broader consensus market power rankings. So to provide you some leading predictable signal. Again, we back tested this on 20 years plus of data, and it had remarkably, predictive results, which is one of the reasons why we've kind of had so much confidence in it, even though this is kind of the first season that we're actually using something like this. And I think just anecdotally, it's been great. I mean, it's been ahead of the curve on a team like the Bengals, been well ahead of the curve on a team like the Seahawks, like the Lions. It's been well ahead of the curve on fading teams like Packers, Rams, Bucks, Colts, and being able to avoid those types of teams. And one of the things we talked about as well is it's been very accurate on the Cardinals, being like well ahead of ranking the Cardinals as basically a bottom 3 team for most of the entire season. And in fact, it's pretty much the only signal that we've gotten from drive quality that we have manually overridden over and over again to say, it doesn't know, it doesn't understand, it doesn't get it. Like, and kind of betting a lot of Cardinals.
It's true. And it has had its misses too. We've had some heartbreak betting the Jags, though that's all but forgiven after last week.
But again, the Jags is like the Saints is a fair one, because I think it's been miscalculating what we've seen from the Saints. It's hard to say that the Jags is wrong.
Yeah, meaning it's not wrong in the sense of like assessing the
it hasn't
truth,
made us money.
The capital T truth. Yes, I just mean what's made us money. I was taking a very narrow view. It's lost money with the Titans. It's lost money with the that's the nature of the NFL season. Like, you can't build a perfect tool. You're gonna have to have manual judgment, and you're gonna be wrong some of the time. But yes, I don't think the Jaguars is wrong. Certainly not. And as you brilliantly posted, that division bet just fails to die. Is there
it's hanging on by a thread.
And it's such a clear path. It's such a clear path to do it now. Ooh. But
yeah. So still alive. And so some of the biggest 1 week movers, again, from the upside, Panthers up 4 spots to number 26th on a market consensus power rank perspective. Drive quality still a little bit hotter on the Panthers at 22. Again, Lions up 4 spots. Top 10 team from a drive quality perspective, something we called out last week, and why it was actually justified from a drive quality perspective, why they were favorites versus the Vikings. Again, many others were kind of scratching their heads around that. Totally justified from our perspective. And Patriots up another 4 spots to a top 10 team now, number 8. We're still a little bit cold on the Patriots. We're at a market low at 13th. Again, the next closest is a Football Outsider, something we called out last week, and kind of continues to be demonstrated, which is the Football Outsiders power ranking is, the DVOA is definitely the closest to what we've seen as far as drive quality evaluating these teams as well.
Yeah. At least that.
And then some of the biggest divers this week, again, Cardinals down 7 spots to a market consensus power rank of 30th. Of course, losing Kyler Murray, but drive quality was already well ahead of that, already was ranking them again as a bottom 2-3 team for several weeks in a row, pretty much the whole season. Seahawks down 4 spots, Browns down 3 spots, and a flurry of teams down 2 or 1 spot. And that pretty much rounds it up. The bottom 5 teams from the consensus market power rankings, Texans, consensus worst team. Once again, even though they played competitively versus the Cowboys, in fact, came all the way down to the very last drive there.
Yeah, we're an inch away from a touchdown from Chris Bourne. That would have put him up by 10. Put the game away.
And that was one of the biggest spreads of the season, 17 points versus the Cowboys. And it was pretty much never in doubt. The Cowboys, I think, got an early score, pushed it up to plus 22, plus 23. But then it quickly came down and then never even sniffed that again.
No.
Okay, so let's move in to NFL Week 15. Start with the Thursday night game, 49ers at Seattle. 49ers minus 3.5 plus 100 on DraftKings right now with a total of 43. Brock Purdy banged up. Kind of the narrative I'm hearing around this game is Geno Smith's playing worse. It's still a tough place to play in Seattle. The Niners are outperforming. Purdy can't be as efficient or as good as he has been. Getting Seahawks over a field goal, this is kind of slam dunk Seahawks territory. That's kind of just the narrative that I've heard recited over and over again. So from kind of a market perspective, this makes me not want to touch Seattle.
Right. I don't want to touch either of these teams. I disagree with the reasoning, though. I mean, Geno Smith is coming down to earth, but I don't think it's a difference in process at all. In the sense of, like, he's been throwing these turnover-worthy play type passes all season long. This is actually a bunch of film people have been pointing this out. It's just they happen to be turning to interceptions now, but nothing's fundamentally changed. And, like, you still could get the Geno games from earlier in the season. But at the same time, like, Brock Purdy's been nothing but excellent. Like, what evidence do we have other than the fact that he is a rookie, which could happen, of course, to say that, like, oh, he's going to come crashing down to earth? There's no way to know. I will say there's an important live angle here, I think, which is that the Niners play far better from ahead, and this is in the kind of that same vein of Purdy. If you want to fade him, you probably want to fade him when the Niners are behind, if they do fall behind. And Seattle's been a great team kind of when Geno needs to throw. He has not been the issue leading comebacks. It's been the defense failing to stop teams, which I think are important angles to consider.
Yeah. Also, Deebo Samuel obviously banged up as well. So Niners continuing to lose, weapons. And again, this is a pretty big Niners premium. But that's why no one wants to, or at least from what I'm hearing, a lot of why people don't want to bet the Niners. And the Niners have been able to put up points, surprisingly, with Purdy. Again, putting up 30 plus points on the Bucks. They were able to score and move the ball versus Miami, even when he kind of just came in the middle of the game. So for that, it even makes me hesitant on potentially buying the under on here as well, especially turnovers. So yeah, this is definitely a game to try to live bet, get a little bit better sense of kind of how the game is playing out. But I don't necessarily want to play into the thesis of kind of fading Purdy, like his life cycle's running short, and that we've already seen the best of him, because Shanahan has made a lot of these backup quarterbacks look decent, not just in 1 or 2 games, but for 6 games.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think the Niners are clearly the better team as well. So, and I think the Seahawks have been different without no Ken Walker as well.
Right, but he should be back. Can do a little bit of filling in for Dan. I did happen to see the rumors that he'll be back. I think a fun one to watch. Live betting, nothing. Too much uncertainty to bet before the game.
Yeah. All right, Saturday game, Vikings, Colts +4, total 48. I think the Jeff Saturday magic is obviously wearing off now, being exploited. So I think this is a pretty meaningful head coaching mismatch, talent mismatch. Again, things didn't go right for the Vikings versus a Red Hot Lions team, but Kirk Cousins still played well underneath the big discrepancy in score. And I think I like the Vikings here.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, we've said it all year. We know what the Vikings are. They're the same team. They're very stable. I think they happen to match up pretty well against the Colts in that the Colts have really limited production against wide receivers. But number one, Justin Jefferson's an alien. It shouldn't apply to him. He'll probably win that matchup regardless, and they can win with their backs and especially throwing it to T.J. Hawkinson over the middle. But I don't think the Colts offense is really capable of taking advantage of the areas where Minnesota's weakest in the secondary. Like if you've got the noodle arm of Matt Ryan throwing to Alec Pierce, it's not exactly instilling fear and executing the deep ball.
Yeah. I think the main vulnerability here is the Vikings, porous defense. And we know one of the biggest weaknesses for Matt Ryan, you're going to put pressure on him, then everything can unravel quite fast. And I don't know if the Vikings are necessarily going to be able to do that,
right?
Which could keep the game, closer than you'd think that maybe it otherwise should be.
Yeah. Although by the same token, you can take a lot. And Matt Ryan's going to put himself in situations to take sacks, kind of regardless of what the Vikings are throwing at him. But the point is definitely well taken. And like if they establish if Jonathan Taylor's running for 7 yards to carry, and it's a slow game, of course that's working in favor of the Colts.
Yes.
Certainly.
All right, Ravens +3 in Cleveland. Total is 37, one of the lowest on the board. I was tweeting a little bit this week about Deshaun Watson. I rewatched the Browns-Bengals, and to me, he definitely looked slow, lacked the processing speed, was throwing the ball late, but one less dropped ball, one less bad pass, and literally one less dropped ball in a critical situation, one less bad pass into the end zone that was too high and wasn't caught, changes the game script of that game. Browns are much closer to the Bengals. Maybe that thing turns a little bit more sideways, and the Browns end up winning that game. From a drive quality perspective, the Browns did outperform their realized score.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to continue to take a few games and maybe the rest of the season for Deshaun Watson to really get back up to speed. But I think he did play better than what's kind of being what the perception is following losing to the Bengals by 2 touchdowns.
Completely agree with that one. I think what people are not talking about is almost over the last month, the Browns rushing game has fallen off a cliff. Right, like earlier in the season, they were averaging like 0.1 EPA per rush, which was first in the NFL by far. It was efficient as like some of the best passing games. Right now, it's negative 0.19, which is worse than the Carolina Panthers offense this year. A lot worse. The run game has been pretty much disaster over the past couple of months. I honestly don't know if Watson's the biggest issue right now. And I think almost baked into the price for Cleveland is, okay, their offense is going to get going because they can always run the ball. And I'm not sure that's really true. Right, what's do they have the rushing props up? What's Nick Chubb's rushing prop? Is it still 89?
73.
73. Okay, whatever. It's 100 yards between Hunt and Chubb.
Yeah.
Either way, I just look. I agree with you on the Watson take, and I think right if we're trying to predict change, I think processing speed is exactly the type of thing where game action helps, and better from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Watson puts together kind of a vintage performance. And I think you're right that this game looks very different. If Donovan Peoples-Jones doesn't drop that touchdown, which would have hit a nice 40-1 same game parlay, and they were failing on fourth downs, I think the Browns could surprise, put together a good offense, but it all hinges on Deshaun Watson because his rushing game is not really going right now.
Yeah. And hey, you've pitched, a lot of really great pregame trade ideas and kind of hits on players. But I don't know, for whatever reason, the one that's so far impressed me the most was the fact that you're so bullish on Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I understand the reason why, like Amari Cooper is banged up and whatnot, but still, the fact that he ended to get double-digit catches, ridiculous amount of targets, went over the 100 yards, that was very sweet.
That was nice. It would have been even sweeter if he caught that touchdown.
Yes. In fact, I during the live trade, I was counting some money of parlays that actually didn't hit because I forgot it was receiving yards over for Watson, receiving yards over for Peoples-Jones, plus the catches, and then I forgot it was plus the touchdown.
Yeah,
and the touchdown didn't. Twice.
We were close.
You could have had 2 touchdowns.
It's true.
There we go. But nonetheless, very on target handicap. Dolphins +7 in Buffalo. 43.5 is the total. Was reading that the weather is supposed to be pretty miserable. Which is one of the reasons why I suspect the total is this low, given these two offenses.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I actually think I want to target that total of 43.5. I think we can go over. I know the Bills offense has definitely been clunky the last couple of weeks, certainly not nearly as explosive as we've become accustomed to. And then there's also, I've been reading some things on Twitter the Dolphins have been kind of found out. The game script is out on them. I don't know if that's necessarily true either, just because they put in 2 subpar performances. One of the things that we saw even versus the Niners was, the dudes were getting open, they were moving the ball, and it just came down to a lack of execution specifically by Tua. But I don't know if they're figured out from a scheme perspective.
Yeah. So I honestly don't. I think the Tua bad game is the Niners. I think this one was actually more about the defensive adjustments of dropping linebackers back in coverage. Look, there's kind of the way I'm approaching this is, well, first I'll say about the Tua Dolphin situation and then why that fell into the game. The first part, I trust Mike McDaniel to make adjustments. It was unclear, okay, was this a Niners thing? And then, once Staley did the kind of exact same thing, giving depth to linebackers, okay, it's out. People are going to try that. McDaniel knows he has to adjust now. It's not just a one-off with the Niners. And if you want to look at even, how well the Dolphins have played on scripted plays this year, they've been great. I trust McDaniel to figure it out, come up with a new game plan. He knows what's coming. It's no secret, right? The Niners and Chargers just do the same thing. But the other part is that I've been really selling the Bills defense recently. The team has not been playing well over the past bunch of weeks, and this is it's a double-sided thing I want to buy, which is we're not going to get the Dolphins lower than where they're at right now. We know they have the ingredients to be an extremely successful offense. They've shown that for weeks on end. They have that high-end ceiling, and the Dolphins and the Bills defense is being priced as an elite one when they're just not. And they're not really able to get quick pressure, which is really the only area that Tua has been unsuccessful this year. Again, weather certainly a concern, but assuming it's not, 30-mile-per-hour winds and 4 inches of snow.
The wind will be critical. The wind will be critical. Yeah.
The wind is critical, although it does work both ways. But I see this as a spot for the Dolphins to bounce back against an overrated Bills defense, and trust McDaniel. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, I would agree with it. I definitely like Dolphins +7. And as long as the wind is not a meaningful element, then I actually do like the over on the 43.5 by a little bit of a bounce back from the Bills' offense as well, and assuming that the Dolphins will also be able to still move the ball on a Bills defense that has its own vulnerabilities, especially with no Von Miller anymore as well.
Yep.
Eagles -9. First game on Sunday now. Eagles -9 on the road versus Chicago. Terrible defense, one of the worst defenses in the league the last 5 weeks, especially since they started making some of those kind of trade deadline moves. Total 48.5. This also seems like it could be potentially low for two of the most explosive offenses that we've seen, especially from a drive quality perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question really hinges on Fields' health and whether or not he's going to be rushing. If he's rushing, this can be an explosive Bears offense. He's good for a 50-yard rush a game, it seems. But again, as I always like to say, points exist in two spheres, right? It is both a reflection of like a point spread value, like power rankings, and a fundamental. This team is, 4 spread points better than the next, but it also exists as real points in real games. And as we saw last week, it's a perfect example. The Eagles will be extremely aggressive. They're willing to put up a lot of points. And when a team is scoring 35, 40 points, the -8 spread is not so meaningful. Or I should say is less meaningful than it would be in a lower scoring game. Which leads me to say, like, the Eagles are clearly the superior team. The total might be attractive if the Bears can kind of put up points of their own. But I like the Eagles here for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to necessarily. No, yeah, I wouldn't want to touch the spread. If there's going to be touching of any spread, it would probably be Eagles alt. But I don't necessarily trust the Eagles. Again, they haven't done it the last couple of weeks, but to run up the score in the first half and then relax in the second half, still pull out a victory, but kind of stop scoring points. I could see that potentially happening as well. But yeah, so I'm looking at the total over. Seems like potentially the most attractive. And I would do alt total, especially if you get a relatively quiet start, which would also seem hard with both these teams.
Yeah.
Chiefs, 2 touchdown favorite in Houston versus the Texans, total 49. Maybe last week, intrastate rivalry, Texans and Cowboys. Maybe that was the last hurrah. But again, I don't love Chiefs. I've said this numerous times this year. I do not like Chiefs double digits. I don't like Chiefs really 2 scores type spreads.
Yeah.
Didn't work out last week either, even though they went up by
27
touchdowns. Yeah, almost 4 full touchdowns. Ended up not getting the cover. Drive quality says that they didn't get the cover either, so it wasn't necessarily unjustified. Russell Wilson goes out. I mean, who knows? Maybe that game gets even more sideways if he potentially stays in. Again, the Chiefs just, I don't know, for whatever reason, they just cannot. They're not interested in blowing teams out, or I don't know what it is, but they just don't. They do it maybe once a year, regardless of the competition. And it's always usually at maybe like a weird time, like a team that they shouldn't blow out or something.
Right.
And for that reason, I would not want to mess with Chiefs -14, especially if the Texans are still trying.
Yeah. They're not aggressive, but they're still trying, and Davis Mills loves to throw it downfield, which you connect on a couple of those, and that's enough offense. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see any reason to buy the Chiefs at 14 here. And I'm not buying the Texans either.
But still, one of the biggest spreads of the season, Texans at home. I think it has to be, if you are a DGen and want some exposure on this, got to be like Texans or bust in my view. Cowboys -4 on the road at Jacksonville, total 48. I'm going back to the well. I don't know, for the 13th time this season.
What week is it?
Week 15.
The Jaguars had their bye, so the 14th time.
Yeah. Again, every week it looks attractive. I've said numerous times, I do not like the Cowboys. I do not trust the Cowboys. I don't think they're going to go very far. And it's not like Obviously, the Jags are super volatile, super clumsy, make tons of mistakes. But I don't necessarily trust the Cowboys necessarily capitalize on them per se. And if the Jags, and we said this in the past too, we said in the preseason preview, you don't want to play the Jags in the final 4 weeks of the season, especially. And we definitely saw that start to come to fruition last week. Definitely one of the better games that they played all season. And now they're +4 on the road, still alive in the division, tons to play for. I can't stop the Jags.
Yeah. I'm torn here because I like both sides. I think we haven't really seen the Cowboys offense unleashed in a pass heavy game script. Meaning they've really just kind of put on the easy buttons and led their run game. And I think this offense can be extremely successful when they're throwing the ball. And the Jaguars defense is really attackable now. Like they are really weak. They've been the second worst pass defense by a large margin over the past 2 months of the season. And the Cowboys are really built to exploit that, even if it hasn't actually kind of manifest that way over the past couple of months, which leads me to say exactly how I will be attacking this game, which is a tails outcome. I will combine some Dak Prescott passing props with I don't even know. It depends on the pricing, honestly. I could try and middle this with the Jaguars bet also, but I will be betting Prescott passing overs and some combination of Cowboys spread.
Yeah, I could see that angle. Definitely leaning into an SGP all outcome from the Cowboys just really exploding on a Jags.
Yeah. In the same vein, you can bet on Lawrence. Lawrence is playing at an elite level right now. He's been unbelievable for 5-6 games now. You can bet on the Jags too.
Mm-hmm. All right, Lions +1. Lions +1 in New York versus the Jets. 44.5 low total. I don't know if weather could potentially be a factor here. Jets defense played awesome versus the Bills. Again, I really liked what I saw from the Jets. Rewatching that, Drive Quality liked what they saw from the Jets. Mike White played really well. Was dealing under a lot of pain. I understand he got a lot of respect from his teammates for even just staying in. If the injury is not going to affect Mike White's play, then I really like the Jets here.
Really like the Jets.
At -1. Yeah.
Interesting.
And the Lions are a different beast in domes, especially at home. And when they go outside on the road, it's just.
I think you're just butthurt from that Patriots game. Tell me there's no Patriots. Tell me there's no Patriots.
It's not a
back of your
thing.
head.
It's just. They might be part of it, but in any case, I think the Jets are still being underrated. Yeah. It should be 3. It should be 3 in my view.
I'm kind of torn here. I keep betting on it. The Dolphins. The Lions rise has, I think, in part come to the offense has been good for sure, and it's been kind of great all year. But their defense has played better as of late, and I kind of want to sell that angle, right? Are they the 32nd best defense? No. Are they 20th best defense? Also no. I think it's somewhere in between. And I kind of want to sell the short-term rise in the I don't know why I keep saying Dolphins, in the Lions defensive stock. With that said, their offense has been amazing. And it's a real clash. I'm not sure that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get, Sauce Gardner treatment. I don't know if Sauce Gardner is going to go in the slot to play with him. And you added Jamison Williams, who, by the way, was the fastest track player last week and caught a bomb of a touchdown. It's going to be a dynamic offense. I have no take either side of this game. Can the Jets defense slow down the Lions? I'm not sure. I usually like to bet on the offense over the defense.
Yeah, sure.
It's hard. It's a good live one to play though. If you see the Lions kind of slowed down by the Jets, and I think the Jets will have the same success on offense. It's another great matchup for Mike White.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I really like the over 44.5 here as well, assuming that there's not going to be a huge weather element. Again, we're in December now, and so that's always going to be a potential factor that you need to take into consideration. But if it's not, then I like the over 44.5 a lot as well. Steelers +3 in Carolina, 37.5 the total. I mean, I'm really rooting for the Panthers. I got that, plus 4,000 division ticket just from like 3 weeks ago. You bring it up now. Do you know what the Panthers are to win their division now? Without
350.
looking? Yeah.
I'm not looking. I just know because I check these. I check these daily.
Yeah.
Gotta do something at work.
That is a rapidly bullish move on the Panthers, which again wasn't all that. I do not feel like a genius or anything of that. It was like pretty easy trade to make. The division sucks. The Bucks
plus 300,
suck.
by the way. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet on the Saints, and bless my heart after that Monday Night Football game.
Yeah. But nonetheless, so I'll be rooting for the Panthers for sure. But I am not going to be betting them minus a field goal.
No.
The defense has been playing awesome, but again, one of the components of my thesis for betting the Panthers was that Darnold could come in, potentially stabilize offense a little bit. He can play well in a little bit of stints, and he's been playing relatively error-prone football. But I rewatched the Panthers Seahawks, and I saw a lot of things from Darnold that I just did not like. I mean, the dude is like a perfect example of also just like how smart someone like Tom Brady is, and just how Darnold is just not very smart. He got sacked numerous times, and almost every time he got sacked, he's like all tangled and like putting his body in these very bizarre positions, to the extent of where I thought almost every time he got sacked, he was going to suffer some serious injury, knee injury, back injury, hip injury, because he kept putting himself in bad positions. Whereas someone like Tom Brady knows how to take a hit, knows when to give up, knows when just to collapse, and that's how he elongates his career, and also doesn't put himself in necessarily very vulnerable positions to turn the ball over and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so now versus a defense like the Steelers, again, which isn't like, again, they could be dangerous. And the Panthers are still not an explosive offense. They still didn't do even great things versus the Seahawks. They were able to run the ball successfully, which was the main component there. And again, the defense is playing great. And so the defense could potentially still play great enough to still beat a team like the Steelers. But I'm worried about the Panthers, especially if we're not going to see, because basically the main benefit from Darnold so far, you could say, is he hasn't been turnover prone, but he was very like prone to potentially turning the ball over, even in last week's game for a bad defense like the Seahawks.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's good analysis, and I'm not sure I have much to add. And like, I don't know, a TJ Watt game scares me against the Panthers. So the offensive line has held up. I just don't see any angles to play like either side here.
Yeah. Falcons +4.5 division matchup with the Saints in New Orleans, 43.5 the total. Desmond Ridder going to be the starter for Atlanta, introduces a component of uncertainty. He played pretty decent in the preseason, and the Saints are just can't put it all together. I don't feel very strongly in this one.
Yeah,
in either direction.
Yeah. Too much uncertainty. Like Saints I don't want to back the Saints with 4.5 points. And like Ritter's a massive question mark at this point.
Yeah. Patriots -1 on the road in Las Vegas, 44.5 the total. 2 teams
I
that we
got a
bet
lot.
the under on.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it would be nice to cash my
Kai?
first of the Vegas unders with just one. I'm not going to bet anything before the game, though. There is something I want to monitor live, which is the Raiders have been playing, which again makes sense considering their turn to kind of Josh Jacobs and how successful he's been. They've been terrific when playing ahead with a lead. And conversely, the Patriots have been among the worst at coming back. Yet makes sense with a offensive coordinator who lacks in creativity, to put it nicely. They're like a bottom 3 team in any efficiency metric when they're down. So I'd look to, if the Raiders get out to a lead, I'd be perfectly fine. Kind of betting on the Raiders and maybe moving at some alt lines.
Yeah. Also a big interesting, coaching matchup here, obviously, with kind of mentor versus mentee type angle. And yeah, I think I probably like the Raiders here. I think the same thing. The caveat that I had last week with Patriots versus Cardinals was just the Patriots seem a little bit more like the less chaotic team, and that will be sufficient. And that is really kind of what happened in that Cardinals game. And of course, like the huge kind of twist and turn with Murray going out. But yeah, I would probably, this is going to be a good live one, like you mentioned. I think this will be a good live one to watch and see how it continues to play out. Cardinals +3 on the road in Denver, 36 the total. This is the lowest one on the board.
Yeah, what is there to say here? 2 bad offenses. Not back from the Broncos. I don't care who they're putting.
Do you know, is Russell Wilson supposed to be back? Have you seen anything like that?
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. I mean, the NFL's it's almost 2 weeks for concussions, right?
Yeah. And that was a bad looking one too, like a visceral one where everyone has an image in their head.
They're like zoomed in on also this is all about optics. They're like zoomed in on him clearly out of it.
Yeah. And they got nothing to play for, of course.
Both teams are done. No thanks. Not spending my money on this game.
Bengals -3.5 on the road in Tampa, 44 the total. Again, from my anecdotal experience, kind of hearing what others have to say about this game, it's the Bengals are beat up. The Tom Brady-led Bucs are still a top 10 team who've just played bad football, but still have that sky-high ceiling. They just got blown out. Tom Brady's going to be pissed. This is going to be a bounce-back game. And I'm fully on board fading that narrative.
Oh, yeah. I got a little worried there for a second. I mean, I disagree with the point about a high ceiling. I'm not exactly sure what ceiling the Bucs have shown from the 2022 team. And this is probably my highest conviction play of the week. The Bengals, and I'll be definitely adding it with Bordeaux passing props to go along with it. I mean, okay. If you look at the Predict ranking from our chart earlier, which again sources in exactly what's being priced in this week and to a little bit to some extent next week, they still have the Bucs at 10th. Our draft quality has them at like 24th, 23rd. I can't remember which one of the Packers is 24th. They're 23rd. Okay. Right. Like you look at EPA on offense, the Bengals are 3rd. The Bucs are 21st. These teams are not in the same stratosphere. You think about, again, the same point I made earlier about like points existing in multiple spheres. Like we know the Bengals are going to be able to score. How are the Bucs keeping up pace? These teams are not the same caliber offense. And then like the Bucs they had like one good offensive game against the Seahawks. Of course, the spot that he took the Seahawks. But
gotta mention that game every stream.
every stream. Well, that's because I am talking about me selling the Bucs every stream. But
that's true.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, the market is pricing in some sort of kind of downgrade to, there are passing props up. What are the passing props? Okay, only the Burrow touchdowns. I imagine it will price in, even the touchdowns will reflect that. The downturn in efficiency for the Bengals passing offense, and I want to fade any defensive downgrade for elite offenses. I think defensive matchups can matter kind of in the middle, but Burrow's going to win against anyone. Also, the Tampa defense is a shell of itself.
Yeah.
Shaq Barrett's out. Jamel Dean is PFF's 10th ranked corner. He's going to be out for this game. Vita Vea looks like he's going to be out. If Sean Murphy, Bunting, and Antoine Winfield will be back, which is not a given at all, they're certainly banged up. This defense has 0 pass rush. They don't have talent in the secondary. We've talked ad nauseum all season about the offensive flaws. And the Bengals are peaking, and it's not fluky. Joe Burrow is not taking sacks anymore. The offensive line is playing way better. We know the talent they have at receiver. I love the Bengals in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, these are two teams moving in 2 different directions.
Yeah, but they're still not being priced that way.
No,
that's the key point. It's we have the evidence of the Bucs are still being priced as a top 10 team. They're a bottom 10 team for sure. They're terrible.
Yep. Nope. Strongly agree with that. And that's what is presenting the opportunity here. Is there some pretty strong just storylines around this game that's causing this pricing. And, when we're talking about ceiling outcomes for the Bucs, yeah, it's week 15 and it's basically never materialized all season, but people continue to cite it. And something that even we cited, 5 weeks ago, which was, all right, why is the market continuing to hold on to a team like the Bucs? Well, it's because maybe they could put it all together. And if they do put it all together, there's going to be a huge ceiling, but that's low probability. And it's very likely that they are just bad. And that is what's continued to play out. And yeah, I mean, I feel like this should be Bucs minus 7.5.
Bengals
minus 7.5. And so I would play this all the way up to, I'm looking at, Bengals minus 14.
Wow.
Minus 13.5 plus 298.
I like the passing. Burrow, I'm going to combine some Burrow passing props with some Bengals spread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that angle as well. All right, Titans plus 3 in LA versus the Chargers, 47.5. The total. Chargers minus 3 plus 100 on DraftKings. Another 2 teams that potentially could be moving in 2 different directions. Again, the Chargers have been choppy, but maybe they're starting to put it together. Again, they're getting healthier.
Yep. I mean, I still have questions about the defense. I just don't think this is the spot for the Titans are not the team to capitalize. They insist on just running the ball, and they don't have the receiver talent to take advantage of the Chargers secondary. And I think we can't overstate kind of the difference between Justin Herbert throwing to a either hobbled or not playing Keenan Allen. He was throwing to Michael Bandy, and these were nobodies. And now they have 5 legitimate weapons. Mike Williams, legitimate weapon. Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett. Josh Palmer's a very good 3. Austin Eckler is one of the best out of the backfield. You can't underestimate that. Granted, the offensive line has still been an issue, and Herbert's had to manage and navigate kind of those pockets. But I mean, I've been attacking the Titans' pass defense all year. I don't see any reason to stop right now.
Yep, I like that angle. Giants in Washington, rematch of a game just a few weeks ago. Giants plus 4.5, over under 40.5. I was really surprised by this line. In fact, this might be one of the most surprising lines. Maybe it's probably the most surprising line because I at least understand. I think the Bengals Bucs is mispriced, but I understand why it is what it is. I'm surprised the Giants is plus 4.5 here in a game that went to OT just a few weeks ago. And in fact, that our drive quality had implied the Giants did play, in fact, a little bit better than the Commanders. And they were still banged up even then. So I know the Giants did not look good last week, but they're getting blown out by ostensibly perhaps the best team in the NFL. Certainly understandable. I like Giants plus 4.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I find these teams even. I was pretty shocked actually when we were looking at power rankings. The Giants were 28th, 29th, something like that. And I'm with you. I think, and the Commanders are 15th. And that's crazy. I think these two teams are awfully similar. It's just if we flip their seasons, I think we flip the power rankings. If the Giants got off to a extremely slow start and then came on as a late debut in the 15th spot, and the Washington started off hot like the Giants did and then faded, they'd be further down.
In fact, drive quality, has Washington 18th, Giants 21st, versus market power rankings of 15th for Washington, as you mentioned, 29th for the Giants. So the market's saying these are two meaningfully different teams, and that's being reflected in the pricing. Whereas, drive quality would say that these are pretty two equally matched teams, in fact.
Yeah. So it's 4.5 points is too much. I think it's pretty equal.
Last game, Monday Night Football, Rams at Green Bay. Rams plus 7, 39.5. There's another one where, we're lower than the market on both these teams. We price both these teams as pretty bad. The Packers have looked like they've gotten a few things together the last couple of weeks, especially offensively. And the Rams, obviously didn't look great. Even though they were down by 2 touchdowns, I don't think they looked as bad as a 2-touchdown deficit looked like. And so even though it took a miracle to come back and win that game, I think they're still they didn't play terrible. Drive quality still has them losing that game, but still competitive. I think I like the Rams plus 7.
Yeah. Again, it's not a place I'm betting just because it's 2 bad teams and it's just not my style of play, but I agree that 7's too much. And the Packers have shown no ability all year to kind of separate from teams. Maybe by one game against the Bears early on in the season. But again, we saw they're power ranked 10th. Our numbers have them at 24th. I lean much closer to the 24 than the 10. One thing I'm monitoring for props purposes is Tutu Atwell has been the go-to target in situations where the team is trailing since he kind of got some run. I'd be betting some receiving yards and receiving props of his if the game script goes according to what Vegas thinks. And if the Rams are trailing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that angle. All right, good stuff. That wraps up the NFL Week 15 NFL betting market outlook. Again, we'll be back in a couple weeks to wrap up the season going into the playoffs as we take a little bit of a mini break going into the end of the year and into the holidays. So hope everyone enjoys any vacations that they may have. And we'll see you in Game Trade live betting this Sunday and then back on the betting market outlook as we go into the playoffs. See you then. And that's closing bell.